got lots of reaction from you. Thanks very much indeed. Jim says, morning Anne, yes, I've had enough of Boris and his corrupt government 2 years ago. As someone who was overjoyed by the huge electoral success of Boris in 2019, I got fed up when I found there's nothing conservative or honourable about him. How a so-called freedom-loving libertarian Prime Minister can implement such draconian authoritarian lockdown policies akin to China and North Korea is beyond me.
Interesting. Morning Dave in Littlehampton, who says parading around at Gay Pride is simply virtue signalling and means little. Starmer and Rayner look big.
This was the picture. 50 years of Pride was celebrated yesterday and again today, I think, with lots of marches and rallies all over the country. And there was a big one in London, and Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner went out on the march. And I think Angela Rayner looks terrific because she's throwing herself right into it. She's wearing a rainbow flag and trainers that everybody seems to be talking about. They're called popping candy sneakers. And she looks as though she sort of belongs. But Keir doesn't, does he? He just looks a little bit awkward, and I think he looks like Dad.
Yeah, he does look awkward, but he's trying
to... Oh, God, there's Dad out in the march.
His constituency.
Is that? Yeah. So no, I'm not saying it's not important he went along. I just think it's so funny.
No, actually, I want to weigh in as well. I mean, that's clearly a T-shirt somebody else designed and forced him to wear. It's not his fault, is it?
No, we make Camden proud.
I reckon he looked at a whole rail of possible things he could wear for Parliament and have that nice, tasteful black T-shirt.
Yes.
I think he's right. As a fellow dad, I'm standing in his corner.
It's what you think and say that counts. Not
no, I quite agree with you. I quite agree. It's just a picture that tickled my fancy.
Yeah, interesting. GBViews at GBNEWS.uk if you want to feedback to us on that.
I wonder what you think if there was a by-election, how that would go. Do you think, Marianne?
I really
Chris Pitcher's seat
I
up for grabs.
really hope that Boris Johnson would get another stinging slap across the face that, you know, the local people would just go, this is not okay.
It's always been a pretty safe Tory seat, but now we're beginning to realise that almost anything can happen.
Yeah, it's a funny one though, isn't it? Because it's not the profile of those two previous by-elections that we had. It's a fairly safe kind of Brexit voting seat. So they should presumably be instinctively Boris supporters, but I think that gentleman that you just read out then, you know, a huge number of people who were enthusiastic in 2019 are now absolutely furious, and so that could be a significant problem.
Yeah.
People in the Conservative Party, you know, like the people who vote Tory or are kind of naturally Conservative, you know, right of centre, do have principles, do have a sense of honour, do have a sense of right and wrong. And I think there's a certain point where, you know, even if it's a blue Tory government, they're going, this is taking the mickey. These are not the principles which I expect you to stand by.
I think what I find, and it'll be sort of, they'll thunder down on the cabinet table, won't they, today's papers, and somebody will look at them, and papers that you would normally think would always try and find a positive Tory spin are actually sort of reporting otherwise now. The
Mail on Sunday kind of go for it.
The Mail on Sunday going for them.
Yeah, but you're in a position where one of your MPs had to resign because he was watching pornography in the chamber. I mean, it's not a great standard, is it?
No.
I mean, there's just some base. I mean, I would have thought it goes without saying, don't watch porn in the House of Commons chamber.
Yes. But how much is this the failings of individuals, and how much is it sort of corporate responsibility by the Prime Minister?
I think it's both. I think it's a culture. It's a ecosystem that promotes people who are willing to do whatever it takes to get that promotion, to toe party line, to do what the whips say, and it's cronyism front and centre. If you're willing to go out and defend Boris Johnson for giving or wanting to give Carrie Johnson, his then girlfriend, in the compromising situation, £100,000 job, taxpayer's job, if you're willing to kind of go out and defend that kind of behaviour, then you are, you know, selling yourself short.
And we should stress that is the allegation.
But there's another major problem. I recently got dragooned into being on the executive of Windsor Conservative Association. Now, when our Member of Parliament resigns, whoever me and 19 other people decide is going to be the candidate is going to win that election. And then that person will be reselected for as long as they want.
How much pressure in that situation does the local party come under to actually give it to somebody they want in Parliament.
Yeah, what they do is, generally, the party themselves will give a list, so effectively it's kind of, you can have any of these 20 people, but then effectively what happens is some anonymous official in Conservative or Labour Party HQ is going to sift that down to the 20 people, and then, you know, I think legitimately, if you were a voter in Windsor, you would say, well, you know, who is Andre Walker? What gives him the right to effectively decide who my Member of Parliament is going to be?
Yeah, it's a similar story in the Labour Party.
Oh, of course, yes.
There as well, yeah.
Okay, well, we really are now running out of time, so thank you very much indeed for coming in. We'll see you again in about an hour. Do stay with us. We've got lots more to talk about, as you can see, and other things as well, like sport and stuff like that, so it's all happening here. But we'll be back with you in just a couple of moments after the weather.